Welcome to this explainer on Brushstroke 2 from the Soul Canvas curriculum. Today, we're diving into the creative funnel. You know how it is transforming those overwhelming, chaotic, tear-stained journal entries into a singular, powerful musical message. If you've ever sat down to write a song and just felt completely paralyzed by the sheer volume of what you want to say, well, you're in exactly the right place. We're going to unpack the exact methodology to bring your ideas from total chaos to absolute clarity. Let's jump right in.
So before you write a single lyric, before you worry about rhyming, and definitely before you open up any AI tools, I want you to ask yourself a really foundational question. What is your song really about? Because let's be honest, we've all fallen into the trap of trying to tell our entire life story in one piece of art. It's literally one of the biggest mistakes new creators make. You sit down with a whole lifetime of experiences and you try to cram every single detail into 3.5 minutes of music. But here's the thing, a truly great song isn't about everything. It has to be about one thing. If you try to include absolutely everything you've experienced in your messy, beautiful journal, your listeners are just going to get overwhelmed. And when a listener is overwhelmed, they end up remembering nothing at all. It's basic cognitive overload. When you throw 10 different themes, 3 timelines, and 5 different life lessons at an audience, there's no emotional anchor for them to grab onto. You have to willingly make that tricky transition from everything to one thing. You got to give your listener a single, clear path to walk down. To really lock this concept in, I want you to think of your song like a photograph. A truly stunning photo doesn't try to capture every single microscopic detail of a massive landscape, right? Instead, the photographer uses depth of field to focus your attention on one distinct, compelling subject, maybe a lone tree or a specific expression on someone's face. Songs work the exact same way. They're basically sonic photographs. You aren't trying to document the entire landscape of your life, you're just pulling focus so the listener knows exactly what they should be paying attention to.
Okay, let's move into section 1, the overwhelmed canvas, making sense of the paint. So, how do we actually handle that massive stack of raw journal entries sitting on your desk? The ones just filled with raw emotions, prayers, and hard-learned lessons. Well, the secret here is that you don't throw any of your writing away. Instead, you put on your detective hat and look for patterns. You're hunting for the true heartbeat hiding beneath all that chaos. Ask yourself, what thought keeps popping up? What emotion keeps returning? What lesson are you learning over and over again? You might look at your journal and think you've written about 10 totally different subjects, but when you actively look for patterns, you might realize, oh, wow, I've been writing about job stress, schedule stress, and financial stress. But underneath it all, the recurring pattern is actually a deeper need for trust.
This brings us to section 2, personal story versus universal truth, the key to timeless songwriting.
Now, there is a super vital distinction you need to make between the specific events of your life and the relatable truth your listener actually needs to hear. Your story is deeply personal to you, absolutely, but your message, that has to be universal for them. For instance, if your personal story is about losing a specific job at a specific company, the universal message there is learning to trust God's direction when the future feels uncertain. Or if your story is the daily grind of caring for a sick loved one, the universal message is the endurance of faithful love during difficult seasons. A listener who has never walked in your exact shoes, who's never worked at your company or known your family member, can still deeply connect with that universal emotion. They connect with the core message, not your logistics.
Let's look at section 3, the one-sentence heartbeat. It's all about distilling your truth.
To isolate that universal truth we just talked about, we need to squeeze your massive, complex story through a creative funnel. And here is an actionable 4-step method you can use every single time you sit down to create. First, you review those journal patterns. Second, you extract the universal message from your personal story. Third, you determine your emotional destination. And finally, step 4, you write the one-sentence heartbeat. This isn't just some loose, fluffy, creative exercise, folks. This is a structured workflow designed to prevent you from getting totally lost in the weeds of your own inspiration. And here is the exact prompt you're going to use to do this. I want you to complete this sentence. If someone remembers only one thing after hearing this song, I hope they remember, now listen closely. You must complete this exercise with just one sentence, not a paragraph, not 3 connected ideas, just one simple statement. And honestly, if your sentence requires a semicolon or a conjunction, you're cheating. We're looking for statements like, grace is bigger than my mistakes, or peace can exist even in uncertainty. That simple single statement becomes the absolute rock-solid foundation of your entire song. If a future lyric doesn't support that one sentence, it simply doesn't belong in the song.
Moving on to section 4, destinations and seeds, guiding the journey.
Once you have that heartbeat firmly defined, you need a destination. A song is essentially a vehicle, and every vehicle needs a destination. You've identified the core message, but now you need to figure out the feeling. Ask yourself, how should the listener feel the moment the song ends? Are we driving them toward feeling hopeful, comforted, peaceful, maybe convicted or inspired? Every single creative decision you make from here on out must point toward one of these specific emotional destinations. Because later, when you pick the tempo, the instruments, the vocal style, they all have to serve this destination so your listener knows exactly how to feel when the music finally stops. Now, I know exactly what you're thinking. As you narrow your focus down to just one sentence and one emotional destination, you're inevitably gonna have to leave some brilliant, beautiful journal entries behind. And yeah, it can totally feel like you're throwing away your best writing. But we need to reframe that perceived loss. You aren't sending your brilliant, unused lyrics to a graveyard. You're planting seeds. They're safely saved for your next masterpiece. Remember, you aren't just writing one song. You're building a whole catalog. Those extra details didn't disappear. They just became the starting point for your next creation. Which brings us to our final question for this explainer. Before you pick up your brush to paint the next stroke on your canvas, ask yourself, have you found the single beating heart of your masterpiece, or are you still trying to paint the entire landscape? Take a step back and discover the true power of saying just one thing perfectly. Because when you finally strip away all that chaos, your true message can actually change the world. So, what is your one thing?